It's the NUKA-COLA Lounge, presented by the Triple S League.
NUKA-COLA was a popular drink in the pre-war era, and still is today.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Triple S Podcast for December 7th, 2016. Happy December to y'all. How are you doing today, Sabsidian?
I am doing well. Katie Cat is not here today. She is indisposed while we're doing our recording. So
not feeling well today.
Not feeling well. Aside from the winter bug going around, it's very, very cold right now, and it's very dry here. But I mean, it's not just cold here. Like freaking Hawaii got a dump of snow, and it's all over like everywhere right now. Tons of places that don't normally get a ton of snow are drenched in it right now. So,
who installed the winter mod? Get it out of here.
Yeah, I know. And I gotta say again, second time this happened, there was another foam attack. And I'm really disappointed in the conspiracy community that they haven't come up with anything, outlandish and serious on this. I mean, come on, get off your keisters. We want good conspiracies about foam creatures.
Absolutely. It's funny. I've gotten into watching sort of these mystery paranormal channels on YouTube, and not because I really believe in any of that, but
they're quite entertaining.
I especially love the ghosts caught on camera or possessed doll caught moving on camera, and so you're watching, and it's just this doll sitting on a shelf, and like a few seconds in, it just falls over. It's like, that's it? This is on your top 5 list of possessed dolls that move.
I mean, it's funny to me, when I'm sitting there, I'm like, do I see some fishing line twine tied around that doll's leg? That's pretty funny. It's just the fake stuff is hilarious because it's mainly good for a laugh.
There are some, and I mean they could be fake as well, but there are some things that you find that they just do look really weird and kind of creepy.
There's enough really creepy things in. I've got boatloads of stories about lightning and what lightning has done. That's really bizarre, and I mean ball lightning. If you ever look into that stuff's it moves, and sometimes it doesn't move. Sometimes it stays in one spot. Other times it moves very, very fast. Other times it appears inside airplanes. Other times it just appears hovering inside a classroom. It's like, what?
That's one of the.
So yeah, our understanding of physics maybe not quite as high as some might think.
Well, physics actually is a very well understood field, but that doesn't mean that there aren't weird things that still happen.
Anomalies and whatnot. It makes life interesting.
But anyway, the foam monster. So another foam monster. So what's going on? What's with all the foam?
Well, it is a fire retardant system. It is a fire suppression thing that they put into some of these buildings. And yes, I guess theoretically, if it ever goes off, it would go kind of crazy and all over the place. But it's there's so much of it coming out of these buildings. It's how much foam do you need? Do you need it? Do you really need the foam to fill up the entire building times 5? That's why I really think that a conspiracy theory should be made for it. I'm kind of expecting it, but
yeah, you just ruined the fun for me with the whole it's the fire suppression system. It's just, and there's no Santa Claus, and being a grown up sucks.
Kids.
No,
sorry, kids. No, if we have there's no Santa Claus. It would be impossible for one man to fly around, give all those presents to all those kids. Clearly, there's at least 2 of them.
I had several theories when I was a kid about how Santa Claus could actually work. That maybe, it was a bunch of guys, not just one guy. Or maybe he had some sort of time freezing device.
Santa Claus is totally a Time Lord. I mean, honestly.
Huh.
Think of all the things that make sense. Sleigh that can go anywhere. Sleigh that can technically...
This bag of toys, obviously, bigger on the inside. Huh?
Yeah, everything bigger on the inside, obviously. And the fact that, he lives for really, really long times. And it made sense to me when I was like 12 or 13 watching Doctor Who reruns, and I never understood why in the Christmas episodes why they never like hinted that Santa Claus might actually be like a hidden Time Lord that Doctor Who kind of knows. I don't know.
Still, can you imagine how much time that would take to go from house to house? Let's say he arrives at each house exactly at midnight, kind of like some of the songs suggest, right? So in each time zone, in every house, he goes to one house exactly midnight, delivers the toys, and then warps his TARDIS to the next house, goes back a minute or so, back to midnight, so he's arriving simultaneously. But to him, he's doing them all in sequence. Like, yeah. Talk about...
I mean, it's like you stop, you drink a little bit of milk, a little bit of, cookies whenever you need to. I think the theory that Santa Claus is a Time Lord is a solid one, and I think it should be investigated. Huh. I'm just saying.
Yes. All right. So, someone get on that. Anyway, someone get on that and let us know your findings. So
going on to the opposite spectrum, I heard there's new DLC for a certain game.
Oh yeah. So, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location released earlier this year. To much joy from me because I'm a humongous fan of the series.
Much terror to most other people.
Well, this is a weird thing. I'm a huge fan of the series and the story and the games, but I haven't actually ever played them until just a couple months ago. I played some of the first one. And I actually got to night 4 before I had my first death, which I was fairly impressed with myself. I actually tried to record it for Halloween, and then as soon as I was done, I lost the recording. It just, zapped itself off my hard drive, and it was gone. So that was disappointing. But, anyway, I watch YouTubers play them. I mostly Markiplier, and it's almost kind of... I just really enjoy it. That was my introduction to Markiplier, was watching him play Five Nights at Freddy's, and I love the games. But yeah, so they... new DLC for Sister Location came earlier this week, and it's the custom night, and it's been very fun to watch, and it's not just like an added game mechanic, it's also continuing to add to this mysterious lore surrounding these games, and every new thing that comes out for that series just kind of throws a lot of things into question about what exactly is going on in the story of this game. But anyway, I recommend checking that out. Check it out on YouTube. A lot of people playing it.
I thought that that Sister Location was not super popular because of the delay that it caused. The alleged delay that it put on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie that's coming out.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I was aware of the movie. I wasn't aware that it potentially delayed the movie.
Yeah, it's something about the lore and the possible meaning or whatever might have
Would you change things, so they might have had to rewrite
yeah,
the script
it would have changed things. I don't know how to say it, but there was a bunch of people, especially the lore hounds, that were upset that that apparently the direction that they're taking the movie in wouldn't have lined up at all with the new game, which would have resulted in missed continuity. So that was something that I didn't know. I don't follow the movie that closely, or this the new DLC here.
I hadn't heard that. I do know there's a book out, and it is canonical as far as lore goes, and it just keeps adding things. And I wonder if the developer, his name is Scott Cawthon, I wonder if he actually had the entire premise and the entire story in his mind and is just slowly revealing it in each game, or if he keeps adding to it bit by bit.
I would really, really hope so, because one of the really nice things about watching the lore and the story go on from earlier projects that started out as Red vs. Blue is a great example where they tied all of the crazy, silly, inconceivable stuff. They tied all of that in together several seasons in, and they like made a conclusion to like all the crazy stuff that they'd done in the first few seasons, which I thought was brilliant. And there's a couple other games and a couple other things where they do that. They run with the craziness, right? They run with the thing, and they create the reason why stuff is happening. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's a true sign of good writers. And when people say, "Oh, our writing has gotten stuck," like High School of the Dead, awesome zombie anime got more or less shelved because it's like, oh, we wrote ourselves into a corner. And I was like, I know you wrote yourselves into a corner, but I think you could have written a way out of that. So I like it, and I really hope that Scott has come up with a whole direction for the series, because I honestly think that if this movie hits it out of the park, that it'll replace the Jason and Freddy slasher fix, because I'm so done with those. I'm so done with those. I am so done with those. They make so little logical sense. They're just an excuse for terrible acting and terrible animation and effects and all this. It's just, it doesn't work. Give me something that's got something new to it. So that's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Five Nights. I think it'll come along great.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it. Gonna be a bit of a wait yet. But speaking of movies, we are not far away now from Rogue One. Oh, I'm stoked for that. Holy crap.
I am happy with that. There's been a lot of controversy going around about it, and I think it's a little bit overblown on both sides. I think people are making some mountains out of molehills. I don't think it's necessary. Like, I'm going to reserve my judgment on if it's a success or not based off of the actual movie, not based off of like what people say on Twitter, like, those things and opinions of like directors and that kind of stuff. Directors come and go. As much as we are thankful for Mr. Lucas, not every single movie he ever did was stellar, and I think that knowing that and knowing how it can recover, even if you have somebody horrible directing, or if that's your perspective, or if you think it's got to move in the one direction or this direction, like really anything, just judge it on the merit of when it comes out, because if not, then you're making a lot of judgments on the actors and the production crews and the people who pulled off the the effects and the smaller bits of the story, and not just the main, like, I mean, the whole pod racing thing was, I think, pulled off kind of silly in the rebooted series, but I still like the concept of pod racing. I think it's a great concept, and I think that if it had been handled a little bit better, then I think it could have become a little bit better. It could have become more of a kind of a mainstay in the series, and I like that concept. I like sci-fi high-speed racing. It's a cool concept. So just because it was handled maybe a little bit bad in one part doesn't mean you need to freak out about it too much. But
the one thing
I'm going to withhold judgment until it comes out.
Well, yeah. I mean, we haven't seen it yet. Everything I've seen of it looks fantastic, but the one thing I always remember from watching that pod racing scene the first time I saw Phantom Menace was that two-headed alien. The English-speaking head was voiced by Greg Proops, and I was really into Whose Line Is It Anyway at the time. Yeah, I was like, holy crap, that's Greg Proops, that's so awesome.
It was good. I remember that. That's pretty awesome.
It says a lot that is the highlight of watching that scene.
I have not, aside from the original teaser that came out, or the first trailer, whichever one it was, I have not watched anything about it. Every time somebody starts talking about it, I tune pretty much everything out. The only thing that I've caught is some of this, which like I said, I didn't really look into it, the whole why people are raising fists. I don't even know if it's that big of a deal because I'm not listening to any of it. I'm gonna not listen to any trailers, watch any trailers, listen to any commentary on it. I'm not gonna do anything until it comes out, until I can judge it for myself. And yeah, so because I mean, if you listen to the overhyping of some trailers, they overhype like crazy, and then you're disappointed. And then other trailers like Thor. Thor was a great one where, I kind of had a feeling it would be good, but a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna bomb. This is gonna be terrible. This is gonna be a piece of trash." And then everybody I know who watched it was like, "This is the greatest superhero movie I have ever seen," and I can't. And I am now an official Marvel fan. I remember tons of friends saying that because it was so obvious that people had sold it as a failure, and then of course it did really, really well. So
I like it when things are a little more underhyped. We talked about this a couple weeks ago on about game hype and how the No Man's Sky phenomenon of overhyping a game, and then it's like awesome for 5 minutes, and then you get through to past everything you saw in the trailers and that initial concept, and it's like, is that really all? Like we were when we saw this delicious, juicy, crust on the outside of your fried chicken, we were expecting some delicious meat inside, not just the batter, fried into a chicken shape.
or that article going around right now, the person who made the a roast chicken out of nothing but chocolate. It's like, yeah, it's great. Unless, of course, you were, wanting protein, then, maybe not so.
That sounds fantastic on the surface, but you get partway through your drumstick and you realize, I've just eaten a crap ton of chocolate. I am going to regret this in a few minutes.
The other thing, too, and I know this is going to counter most of what I just said about not judging something overcritically, but so there's an eSports movie coming out, and the first person on the casting list that was released is Will Ferrell, I believe.
Yes, Will Ferrell. As an
aging movie.
He's apparently going to be playing an aging eSports guy. Esports athlete?
Didn't we do this with Pixels? Didn't we do this with Pixels? And didn't everybody agree that it was a terrible thing to do?
I don't think it's going to be like Pixels. I mean, Pixels was just such a far out there premise. It's just the premise made absolutely no sense, which I could have forgiven if it was a good movie, but you can't. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, again, it was just that crispy chicken skin of glorious video game nostalgia with we realize, there isn't actually a good movie underneath it.
I gotta say that I think the reason why some of these game esport things, and I don't think this one's gonna, I know I'm going against what I just said, but I don't think it's gonna be a success. But the reason for it is the concept, the basic concept is actually very familiar to something that people who are not gamers are for the most part more familiar with, and that would be like chess champions. You don't make movies about chess champions because the pressure, the action is all within two people's minds, and it's the strategy, it's the outthinking somebody on the fly, it's the aggressive mind games that you play with one another, and you see that a little bit in like poker, but that's because you get to see the end result before the end result is apparent. In this aspect, I think they're the reason why nobody's ever made a hit movie on chess championship sports thing is because it doesn't translate that way, and I think they're trying to make esports translate that way when it should be a little bit of a different style and a little bit of a different direction, I think. I'm not sure what, but I don't think comedy is necessarily the way to go with somebody who's in his, what is he, late 60s now? Late 50s?
Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
No. They're typing, how old is Will Ferrell? I'm guessing...
Will Ferrell is... Oh, I got it right. 49. Almost 50.
You said late 60s.
I know. So, yes, he's hitting his 50s. So unless this movie is going to be played in the... based in the 2050, I don't really see how it's gonna make the cut, as far as believability goes. And
well, if I would guess, the premise I read was he's going to be playing an aging eSports star. If I were to guess at the premise, I think it would be one of those stories where, fish out of water story, where at a more advanced age, he decides to get into esports. And, a story of overcoming or whatever, sometimes their movies are wont to do. I mean, you have the movie about, dog that wants to play basketball or something, and, oh, well, it doesn't say in the rule book that dogs can't play. That's Air Bud, by the way. You remember Air Bud? What a movie. Did you know that was the...
I looked at the premise of that and I'm like, somebody's joking, right? This is ridiculous.
Well, actually, the first one is somewhat believable, except for that basketball game scene. But...
I didn't watch.
Yeah, well, I won't get into that, but that's where I guess it would go. Will Ferrell's career is basically built on movies where he plays... a guy who does a thing, but he's a guy who is really weird in that setting. He's a weird oddball.
Elf was good. I give him that. Elf was amazing.
He's got some good movies, but you look at his, Talladega Nights, for example, or Blades. What's that skating movie he did with Jon Heder?
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. That one was good too. The Ron Burgundy. That was
Ron Burgundy was.
The second one was. I think they went a little overboard on it. They could have kept it a little bit more simplistic, but both of those are funny, and you laugh hysterically at a good chunk of the movie, which makes it good enough. So.
Right. So Will Ferrell. I enjoy Will Ferrell. I think he's very funny, and when you're doing comedy, your movie doesn't have to have an ironclad premise, but I don't know.
This is true.
I don't go and see a lot of those movies where it's like, oh, it's Will Ferrell playing, a ping pong star, or oh, it's Will Ferrell, doing water polo. Again, some sort of sporty setting, or competitive setting.
I did think that one ping pong movie was pretty funny.
I was trying to remember if he was actually in that, but I don't think he was.
No, I think it's somebody else. But still, anyways, moving on.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah. So we had So a lot of other stuff happened this week. Obviously the Game Awards, which we're going to talk about in a sec, but also there was a video of some Prey gameplay footage released that we've had the opportunity to watch, and it just looks really neat. Looks like that's going to be a fantastic game. So
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
It's let's just put it this way. You've got aliens that are trying to kill you, and they can shapeshift into objects that are aboard your ship. And so it's is that a washing machine, or is that an alien in disguise? Was there always two washing machines in this room? Holy crap.
That'll be really interesting.
It's funny, on this video, the guy playing is shooting random stuff, and you're that's what you're gonna be doing. It's like, holy crap!
It's the question of like, okay, here's the question. Say you're in this scenario, you go into a room, and in this room, you know that there's a big metal canister attached to the wall. You get into the room, metal canister attached to the wall, identical metal canister floating in the room. You only got one shot. Which one is it? Did the alien replace the one on the wall, or did it take the form of the one on the wall? Which one? That stuff like that, I think that's brilliant, and I think that's a shot in the arm that the horror series really, really needs. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be brilliant.
Games that play with your mind like that I enjoy those, where you're just not quite sure what's going on, and you just keep encountering weird stuff, and it's like, is this important or not? It's like you sit there deliberating for way too long. Anyway, so on the topic of new game footage, of course, we had a ton of stuff come out of the Game Awards. So what was...
We haven't even had time to cover everything yet. We covered Andromeda, which is going to be amazing. We've got lots of goody inside info on it, and including, I think, some giveaways that we will do when the game comes out. So if you're interested in some signed stuff from some of the devs, keep it locked here, subscribe, and we will have a big release event when the game comes out. So
and then,
covering it and doing some giveaways, so that'll be awesome.
So we've got a video dissecting that trailer, the new one that came out at the Game Awards, and also one for Death Stranding. So you can check those out on our channel here. And Saib has done a fantastic job of really looking at the little details in this trailer and analyzing, what they mean. And as the Death Stranding one, I strongly recommend the Death Stranding one. Because one thing that we're really hoping is that right now it's stated that the game's going to be exclusive PlayStation. We're hoping that we can encourage Kojima to release it on other platforms by just the level of interest, kind of like what's happened with some games this year and last year that were slated for one release, but then came out on other things. And I think that's something that Kojima is far more open to now, and that's a point we kind of get into in the breakdown video. But I think that there's a greater chance of him being open to it right now. But I mean, irregardless, it's going to be an amazing game. It's going to be an amazing game, and we found some really cool little hidden gems in that trailer, and talked about some of the other ones that have been found since the first trailer came out. So if you're interested in that game, which you should be, check it out. I'll have links to both of those videos down in the description, and I hope it comes out for PC, because I don't want to have to buy a PS4 in order to play it. And also found out, I thought Breath of the Wild was going to be just for the next, but it's not. It will be released on the Wii U as well, which makes me happy.
That's good.
So I don't have to buy a new console in order to play the new Zelda game, which is really good because there wasn't a major Zelda title for the Wii U yet,
which was very
odd.
Which was very weird.
They've had
extremely odd.
They've had at least one major Zelda title for every console they've released now, except
it's a cornerstone. It's a cornerstone of the console.
Yeah, it would be releasing a new Nintendo system without 50 Mario games. Like, you gotta have at least one Zelda game for every 50 Mario games. Like, seriously.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a Super Legend of Zelda maker. That'll be interesting. I'm kidding. That's not a thing. I just thought it'd be funny if it was. It's like, what the hell? What the hell do I do?
I do have to say, and we are going to make a video for Zelda, because we're I mean, huge cornerstone of gaming, obviously, and huge fan. I mean,
we're big fans of
I
that,
really
yeah.
think that was the first game I played on the original Nintendo was Zelda 1. Yeah, it was definitely the first game that I played. I didn't pick up Mario until after I played Zelda. I played other games on like the Atari and stuff before that. Ooh, I'm really dating myself now. But yeah, I mean, Zelda is a huge cornerstone, and I couldn't imagine not covering this one, especially with this one that, you know, we're gonna talk about it. But I mean, I think these guys that designed this one were playing a little something that we kind of know a little closely.
Yeah, it had.
We'll talk about that later. What do you think about Game of the Year?
Well, my pick for Game of the Year would have been Dishonored 2. And it really surprised me to see that it wasn't even on the list here. You know, when I look at the games that are on the list, it's no surprise to me that Overwatch won. I mean, the nominees were, Doom, Inside, popular indie game that came out this year, Titanfall 2, Uncharted 4, and Overwatch. And I think Overwatch has definitely had the most cultural impact. It is, you know,
it is huge, and that's one of the key things about it is the fact that it is such a big impact. And I think that it did deserve to win based on, you know, how it's changed the gaming industry. I think that that's completely acceptable. The one thing that I was a little disappointed with is that I don't like games winning Game of the Year when they lack a core single player component. And that was the only thing. That's my only complaint about Overwatch, is that it doesn't really have a story driven component to it, when I feel that it definitely could have in some level, for the amount of money that they put into it, for the amount of time that they put into the character developments. They've got the trailers, but I don't see why they couldn't have made some of those trailers some gameplay components to them. Like that's the one thing that I'm hoping that they kind of work on in years to come.
Right. Well, I mean, that said though, like Game of the Year, that's just like your entire. That's the huge big pot. That's every game that was released this year, you know, could be nominated in that category.
And I you know, Uncharted 4 definitely, you know, won its fair share, and I would definitely say that it was definitely in my top 3. So
Dishonored 2 actually won against Uncharted 4 in the action adventure game category. So that just is. It's surprising to me that it wasn't even on the list. It wasn't even nominated as Game of the Year. I find that very surprising. And I don't know if it's because it has a smaller community of players, or if it's because it came out so late in the year.
Well, those are my 3. Those are my 3 picks. Would be Dishonored, to Uncharted, and Overwatch. So those are my picks, and I mean, at least there's at least 2 of them made it in, and you know, Dishonored 2 did win an award in and of itself. So I think it was a very competitive year, and I think I really like the fact that that Uncharted 2, the multiplayer in Uncharted 2 is amazing, and I think that's. It's really, I think it's underplayed right now, and another reason why I think, you know, branching out to more consoles would be a better idea. But you know, it stands on its own 2 feet. Overwatch stands on its 2 feet. I really wish that there was some story component to it that wasn't just things that you watch, like things that you could play or experience a little bit. But Dishonored's got it too. Do kind of wish that there was a bit of a multiplayer component to that too. So
to Dishonored too, that would be interesting. Multiplayer Dishonored. Again, you'd have issues with there's some time slowdown things and time freezing things, and I know we talked about that with like multiplayer Fallout 4 way back, and we were like, well, how would it work with VATS, like slowing down time? But I don't know. There's probably some sort of solution that someone could come up with, but
After I do have to add this little funny anecdote here. So after I had played Fallout 4 for so long, so straight, never didn't put it down for weeks and weeks at a time. Then I went back to Skyrim SEs. First time I really booted up Skyrim since I had played it. I played the basic version, but getting into the new Skyrim, I constantly was trying to hit my VATS key, and nothing was coming up. So I was like, oh wow.
You need to put some sort of time slowing.
There is a potion for that.
You need to put it on that
potion
key,
for that,
yeah.
and put it, just create a shortcut for it, and that would do better. I use the VATS for targeting though, and I'm like, is that a friendly or is it an enemy? And I'm constantly like, oh, god damn it, gotta go back to my spells here. So
yeah. So we had some other deserving games that won awards. So Civ. Civ 6.
Yes. That's my number 4. That's my number 4 for the year.
That was your game of the year. That's another one that was not on game of the year.
It's definitely the best strategy game of the year.
It won strategy game. It did win.
Yes, which I mean, it was kind of it was hands down for that one. That obviously was going to take that position. Really, just because there wasn't any really good competition in the realm of heavy strategy games this year. So, but Civ 6, amazing. Super happy with that.
And then, see here, best family game, Pokemon Go. I believe that also won best handheld game. Best multiplayer, well, Overwatch. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Battlefield 1 was in that race, though. Gears of War 4 was in that race, so it had some competition.
I've heard lots of good things from Battlefield 1. I have not had a chance to play it in depth yet.
Yeah, this I found interesting. Most anticipated game. And the winner was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is not surprising in a way, because everyone, I mean, I see why a new Zelda game would be highly anticipated. It's not, there's no surprise there that it was in the running. I'm a little surprised that it won most anticipated, because there were some amazing looking games that we've seen, trailers for this year. So it was in the running against Mass Effect Andromeda, which has been a very highly anticipated game.
It's going to be huge.
Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, and
the Final Fantasy, that's been a long time coming too, and was highly anticipated. But again, a lot of these things are late or like mid-series genres. Final Fantasy is as old as Zelda, of course, but that's but I think it was probably a tight close race between those two.
Probably, but I realized we hadn't seen the new trailer for it yet, so maybe that's why. But Death Stranding was not on the list of most anticipated game.
I honestly don't expect that out until 2018 or later.
So was this most anticipated game just for the next year?
Oh, I think that's what more. I think that's on the. I don't know if that is an actual rule. I believe that is that the concept of, if you're voting for most anticipated, you're thinking what's coming out in the next 8 to 10 months. Is kind of the thought pattern you'd have on that.
Right. What do you have you looked into Red Dead Redemption 2 much?
I have not touched almost any. It's funny, I have a whole bunch of Old West data and Red Dead Redemption 2 stuff queued up in my browser right now to start looking at and researching, but no, I haven't actually looked into Red Dead. You and I are big fans of that. I mean, we used to play the multiplayer in that on what was it, the first one that came
Red Dead
out?
Revolver. Oh man,
Yeah.
such good times.
Red
And
Dead Revolver.
I remember the cover and sneaking mechanics in that game being so revolutionary at the time.
It was so good though.
Oh
So
yeah,
fun.
thoroughly enjoyed that game. And then of course, best RPG, The Witcher 3. That's what won that. Won out against Dark Souls 3, Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, World of Warcraft Legion, and Xenoblade Chronicles 10. So The Witcher 3. I know that was definitely a big one this year. And then Trending Gamer, Boogie2988 was the winner of that.
Big Boogie fans. I've been a Boogie fan for a very long time, since he started his early on when he started his channel with his Rage videos, with his Francis videos. They're hilarious. So I'm really glad he has made a big push, and he has done a lot of very positive work with other YouTubers and with the general community at large. He definitely earned that, and I was really happy to see that. So
yeah, I was.
yeah. So no, that was all the highlights. That Dragon Cancer won and was probably one of the most heartbreaking acceptance speeches I've ever heard. So I'm not going to talk about it because it was heart wrenching. But that won, and there were some other good bits. I have an award that I would like to throw out.
Okay, what is that?
For the best presenters of the Game Awards 2016 goes to Bernie Burns and Ashley Jenkins, because everybody else, either who was presenting didn't know which camera, or didn't speak properly into a mic, or had some horrendous jokes that they tried and just failed.
I understand there were a ton of technical
some of the
problems
music was just horrible. And the only time that I was like, oh, good, something that I'm not cringing at as far as presenters went was when Ashley and Bernie got out on the stage. So they win our Best Presenters Award for E3. And I kind of hope that the one thing about Game Awards and like E3s and presentations, I just wish that they make the whole thing smoother, because every time I watch one of these things, it's like cringe fest. It's just, it's not always terrible, but I mean, like, get Todd Howard to do the whole thing. Like, he'll throw out some F-bombs, he'll make some funny jokes, and then at the end of the night, everybody will have a new game to walk home with. It's just, it's that simple, right? So
some people have that natural showmanship.
I mean, Aisha Tyler is her first year was kind of rough, or this last year was a lot better. But I mean, it's getting there. It's getting there. It's shaping up. It's interesting that we will look back on the Game Awards. I think we'll look back on the Game Awards in 10 years, and they'll be about as big as like, the Academy Awards, or something comparable. I really think that's the direction that it's going in, and it's cool to see it now in its early days, because if you funny enough, if you go back and you watch like film footage from the early days of some of the award ceremonies in Hollywood, some of them were just as bad. So it comes with time. So
just one last category that I wanted to talk about, just because I find it really interesting. They have a best fan creation category, which, first of all, I'm amazed and impressed that category exists. Like a category for fan games, like awesome. Like that's I think that contributes wonderfully to the community spirit of modern gaming. And modern gaming is nothing without the community behind it, really. modern gaming is all about community. But they didn't actually give an award in this category. There were two of the games were removed from the list after they were announced, and I would not be surprised if that had something to do with it. What was it? Pokemon Uranium, which is a fan-made Pokemon game, and then AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake. What do you know? Both Nintendo IPs.
Yeah, and comes back to how Nintendo treats the community.
So I wonder if one of those was slated to win and then it got pulled, and I wonder if that's why they didn't give an award. But
well, it also enters into a bit of a very not good legal area here, because Nintendo is one of the sponsors, and if they dabbled in who won or who did not win, that just kind of destroys the
destroys the credibility of these
the
awards.
credibility of the awards just takes if you can prevent somebody from getting an award, what's to stop you from being able to pick your own game, or not making sure that one of your competitors, one of your primary competitors, doesn't win. It moves into that real fast, and I am very disappointed in this event, and I think this is not something that should have happened at all. Like, I think this is a very important category. It's a very important factor. I think that we really should focus on mods and what the community offers, because this is a community-driven industry. A lot of these modders end up, going to work on stuff, and there's a level of respect that needs to be handed out at when it comes to mods and some of the projects that the fans create and work on, and that in the case of some of these things, it's like if you're not making the game and you have the rights to it, and you're doing exactly the opposite of what the community is asking you to do, at some point the community is just going to take it and go their own way. And in what we have here is we have what appears to be some punishment going out for, how dare somebody say that or think that, that they could do that. And we get into this whole legal gray area, and it's a big mess. And I really think that,
well,
I'm reserving judgment because we don't know, and the facts will come out later. But if this does come out as somebody was monkeying with the system, that's not good.
Yeah.
That is not going to be a good thing.
Definitely hope not.
Yeah.
But it's was Nintendo the only major game company sponsor? There must have been others.
Oh yeah, there's tons. They all throw in at least a little bit of money to help the thing go on, because it like I said, it's one of the early Academy Award kind of things. It's something that if you want more and more credibility to your industry, you have to have one of those things, and you have to make sure that it's run pristinely, and you have to make sure that it's run with the utmost credibility. And I think what they're potentially doing here is they're potentially throwing a monkey wrench in this. So we will cover this more if more news comes out about this. And I do not feel bad about hammering somebody on indiscretions in the field of messing with outcomes of voter picks. Like, that's something you don't do. That's not acceptable. So yeah.
Clearly, so we're going to just assume that Nintendo was upstanding enough not to be doing that.
Yeah, and that maybe that there was some other reasons that make it more or less a little bit more acceptable.
I think
and
that
they'll come out with a post winner at some point.
I'm thinking it's just because Nintendo is they're against fan creations using
They really
using
are.
their
They really are.
Nintendo ROM hacks of classic Nintendo games are very, very popular, and especially of the Mario games. And but YouTubers have lost their channels because they're featuring these ROM hacks
a
and
5-minute video of them having an old ROM-esque thing of a game that they don't even like, unless you're digging around in some antique places, you're not even gonna find those things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I know that the digital museum, the gaming museum, there's a museum that some people have been trying to create for a while that has like all of the gaming history, and you get it. Like, they're trying to get every single game that was ever published, and they're trying to do all this cool stuff. And they ran into some legal problems trying to get a hold of like certain titles from Nintendo, because Nintendo was like, nah, can't do that. We don't. And they're like, but this is for preservation. And they're like, oh, no, we don't want no preservation here for these certain titles that fall under. And it's like, why? Makes no sense. But yeah, it's really Nintendo for you. So
it's just their mindset, and hopefully that does change down the road. We're hoping so, because I mean, as it stands, we have to try and figure out how to do an analysis of the Breath of the Wild trailer without featuring any actual visuals from the trailer, because we're not partnered with Nintendo, and we
have no intention of partnering.
That's on principle.
With Nintendo.
We have no intention of partnering with them until, ever. I mean, we will, if they ever change their policy and say, you know what, it's all right now if you feature our content, then we'll start featuring Nintendo content because we love it. That's the
we do, and that's the thing is, and I feel kind of bad because it's not in a lot of the cases, it's not the game devs who are making these decisions. It's lawyers on like high-end people who are making these decisions, and instead of finding a fine line, they do this kind of unacceptable red line. And I mean, I guess they have the rights to do it, but
they do.
I mean,
but it's like
there is a reason why they're not the number one console anymore. So
I mean, any game developer, like Bethesda has the rights to say, no, you can't feature and monetize videos with our content in it. They have every legal right to do that, but they'd be insane. They'd be out of their minds to do that. Mm-hmm. Instead, they've chosen to embrace fan-created content, to embrace the things that people are creating and putting on YouTube, or and embrace modding and all these tons of companies are going in the same direction, especially the indie games like back to Five Nights at Freddy's. Like Scott Cawthon was sending out early release copies to YouTubers like Markiplier, a few days before the game was actually released. Mm-hmm. He would send them,
and I mean, it's smart to do that. It's smart to reach out, and it's smart to work with people, because that's how you make an impact in this industry. But anyways,
yeah, that's something that we have talked to death many times, both amongst ourselves and in videos.
I have no doubt that this will become a common topic with other videos going forward, because it's just the way that it happens. And
well, I mean, it's this big chunk of the gaming industry that we can't touch. And I mean, it's not the only one. I mean, Sony and EA and Square Enix, they're all sort of in that same boat. They don't take nearly as hard a line as Nintendo does, but their policies are ambiguous enough that we're just like, we don't really want to mess with that.
That's all for us this week. Let us know what your choice of game of the year was. I am interested in hearing what other people think and what other people would have picked. It's everybody's got their own opinions, and I love hearing what your ideas are.
More videos this week and another podcast next week. Hope to see you all there, metaphorically speaking.
I would say stay frosty, but in this current weather condition that we're having, I will say stay warm and stay happy.
Try not to get foamy.
If the foam monster comes for you, run. Just run. Don't touch the foam.
Take shelter in your local...
Oh my goodness, we need to make a game for this.
The foam. Attack of the foam monsters.